If we feel like our cycle has to be 28 days, we have to be able to predict it, it has to be the same every month so that we can map out our lives and work to our cycles perfectly, it's really going to throw up this sense, like I say, of disconnection, of feeling out of control, of feeling like we can't trust our bodies again and not accepting all of it. And cycle syncing, it's meant to be about honoring our wholeness. It's meant to be about loving and respecting all of who we are and what we need and how we feel. It's really about self-acceptance and self-love. But not only do our bodies change and our cycles change, but life goes on. And many times it's not actually possible for us to sync our cycles to our lives perfectly. Cycle syncing is an amazing concept coined by Alisa Vitti in her books, and it's about understanding how our cycle shifts and changes, how we have different energies and qualities, strengths and vulnerabilities at different points of our menstrual cycle, and then how we can align the tasks of our life to best optimize and flow with those parts of our cycle. So you might have heard of cycle syncing where, different parts of your cycle are good for productivity, other parts are good for visioning and resting and being out in the world versus being back inside ourselves. And it is absolutely a beautiful, magical tool and practice that I absolutely love and treasure and share with my clients, in my courses, in everything that I do. I think it's incredible wisdom because it stops us just living in a linear way where we're showing up the same day in, day out. It invites us to appreciate that there is a cycle where we are different every day, we are not the same, and that we do have different strengths and different vulnerabilities at different points in our cycle, and that is not a bad thing. However, I also really am starting to notice a lot of examples where people are struggling to cycle sync, and not for lack of trying, and not because they don't see the power in it or the value in it, but because it's turning into this art of trying to get it perfect, trying to get it just right, and trying to fit ourselves into a box where we understand our cycle, where our cycle is predictable, where we can really predict and map it out. And for many people, that's actually just not possible. And if you don't have a 28-day cycle or even a regular, consistent cycle, if you find that you don't experience the cycle in the same way as other people, then it can really lead to harmful things happening, like feeling like we can't work with our cycle, like it's not right, our cycle is wrong. Or if we don't have a cycle at all, how do we even fit into this world? And that's what I really want to debunk some myths today, to talk about how you can be cycle aware and cycle sync, but not to the point, not to take it too far where it becomes harmful, and how to do that if you have a cycle that is less regular as well. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'd love to hear from you what you think. Welcome to the Wildflow podcast with me, Charlotte Pronto, certified cycle and feminine embodiment coach and shamanic womb guide. In this podcast, I'll share my wisdom and conversations with powerful change makers, thought leaders, and embodied teachers to invite you to live cyclically in flow with your menstrual cycle instead of fearing it, to heal menstrual shame and normalize womb wisdom and period positivity, and to step into your sovereign magnetic power to create and embody the change you desire to see in your world. Settle in to unleash your wild flow. Hello loves, welcome to this episode with me, Charlotte. So today I am on cycle day 8 and I'm just feeling a slight rise out of my winter time into more of a spring energy. But I wanted to give you an update on my last cycle. So I got to day 38 before I started bleeding, and I bled just a little bit for 2 days, and then my period stopped. And I was like, no, where's it gone? It was quite frustrating. It disappeared for a couple of days before it came back, and then I had the full bleed, bright red, heavy flow around the weekend, the long weekend, and I've just been away at my mother-in-law's, and we had a busy time with family, and we took the dog and we were out, and it was lovely, but it really wasn't that restful retreat time that I really hope to have with my period, and that I always make sure I have. So I'm feeling day 8, and I'm feeling like I have had a really long winter phase, about 2 weeks. I felt like I was in a winter because I was really expecting to bleed, and then it just didn't come, but my energy was absolutely wintry. So I feel like I still got a sense of winter, even though it just didn't quite line up with my bleed, which it's been a really interesting experience. And I feel like every single menstrual cycle I have is teaching me something, showing me something, a new experience, a new way to surrender into it and to just be with what is, instead of trying to fit my cycle into a textbook 28-day cycle or a perfect map that I can work with. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. So this episode I've called The Problem with Cycle Syncing and the Myth of a Perfect Cycle. So this is something that I've really, really lived, but I also see and hear so many other people living with this too, and this sense of my cycle's not 28 days, so it's not right, or it's not how it's meant to be. Why isn't it 28 days? What's wrong? What am I not doing right? What's wrong with my body? And the feeling of shame that can come up, or grief, or frustration, or just that disappointment and disconnection that we can have, where once again it feels like our body's not performing in the way that it should, and perhaps we can't trust our bodies after all, even with this level of self-awareness that we have when we come to learn about our cycle, what's going on in our body, and how that feels for us, and how it affects our life. So I think this is really important to talk about, this point where we can take cycle awareness to such a level where it starts to, once again, like everything connected to what it means to be a woman or female, or just not male as well, where we start to feel shame, or other, not good enough, if we don't live up to this idea of this ideal standard, what it means to be ideal. And it can really exacerbate the problem with perfectionism if you are somebody who has an issue with perfectionism, or an experience of wanting to get things right, wanting to have things just be as it's meant to be, or to be affirmed or validated or recognized, either by yourself or from others, of being right, of having things right, of having things be ideal and acceptable. And I just really want to speak to this because I think it's something that can be really harmful, and we need to actually let go of this idea of this myth of a perfect cycle, because there is no such thing. And also to talk about cycle syncing and when it can become a problem. So cycle syncing is this idea where we understand our cycle so well that we can work with its shifting energies and cyclic powers, and the strengths and the vulnerabilities that we have, which is a super powerful and super cool thing if we can do that. But the reality is that every menstrual cycle can be different. And for me right now, every menstrual cycle is like not just a little bit different, but like completely different. And I know I'm not the only one. So I am at the tail end of breastfeeding. My hormones are definitely a little bit out sometimes, but also stress. So the world we live in, this time of existence on this planet. It's a very stressful time to be alive. Even, I've been feeling for a while like, no, I'm not stressed. Like, I'm really, really careful about how I manage my energy. I'm careful about what I say yes to and say no to lots of things. I'm careful about recognizing when I'm pushing myself too hard. I'm careful about resting. Like, I'm such a big rest advocate, as you will know from listening to this. But yet I still feel stressed. And it's not that like where my whole body is tight and the thoughts are going a million miles an hour and I've got things to do and I'm, for me, it used to be when I was working for somebody else, that kind of pressure to do well in a job, and be recognized for other people and to earn the money and to, keep up in that way. That was the level of stress that I had before. And that felt like a lump in my throat. It felt like my whole body being tight. It felt like just this inability to let go, relax and unwind because I was always on or worrying about something or thinking over something. So I've not felt that in a really long time in my body, or those kind of thoughts, or to have that experience, but I still feel, I've realized a level of stress in my body. And over this last month, when I think about it, like we're having a renovation at home next month. There's been a lot connected to that. I've got 3 children who are halfway through a school year, coming up to holidays. It's winter here. They're cold. They're tired. They are stressing me out because they really need me right now. The world around me feels stressful. There's a lot to hold. We've had a lot of loss in our family over the last year, a lot of sickness and death. There's that. And also I'm doing a big journey this year with the School of Shamanic Womancraft. And over the last month, we have been diving into our sacred core wounds. I have been touching on lived experience of trauma and how it shapes me now. I have been really feeling into a lot of deep held stuff in my body that I have worked through a lot before. But when it comes back up to the surface, it's tiring and it's a stress on your body. There's a lot of emotional stress that I'm feeling at the minute. And I hadn't really connected with this until recently when I was like, where's my period at? Like, I really thought I had ovulated. I felt like my body, my womb, my sacrum just felt like it was going to bleed. But I was waiting and waiting and waiting and it didn't come. And stress is such a pivotal part of what influences our cycles. And, it's such a stressful time to be alive. I'm saying this because you might be feeling like that you have, a pretty regular cycle and that you can work around your cycle. You can cycle sync. You can predict what's going to happen for you. But it doesn't mean that it's going to always be like that. Your cycle will change with stress or what's going on in the world around you. And also as you grow older and reach perimenopause, if you become pregnant and go through postpartum periods, or if your health just changes in other ways as well, you're not going to always have this perfect cycle. So it's really important to know that when you experience a change in your cycle, it's normal, or it's not something that you've done. It's a question. It's something to make you kind of sit up and listen and think, okay, what's going on here? What do I need to pay attention to? How can I support myself? Instead of going, that's not right. What's wrong? Something is up with my body, and feeling kind of thrown out or shame or disconnected from your body. I'm seeing and hearing so much of this right now, and it's not something to be deeply attached to. Normal menstrual cycle can be something anywhere from 21 to 35 days in an adult, but it can be longer than that. It can be shorter than that. You might have bleeding more, you might have bleeding less. It can be so different. Everybody's cycle is entirely unique, and I'm always saying I think it's so important for us to reconnect with what our own unique menstrual cycle is. So coming back to why this is a problem. If we feel like our cycle has to be 28 days, we have to be able to predict it, it has to be the same every month so that we can map out our lives and work to our cycles perfectly, it's really going to throw up this sense, like I say, of disconnection, of feeling out of control, of feeling like we can't trust our bodies again and not accepting all of it. And cycle syncing it's meant to be about honoring our wholeness. It's meant to be about loving and respecting all of who we are and what we need and how we feel. It's really about self-acceptance and self-love. But not only do our bodies change and our cycles change, but life goes on. And many times it's not actually possible for us to sync our cycles to our lives perfectly. And I think cycle syncing can also potentially stop us from showing up at certain points in our cycle when if we follow cycle syncing logic, think this is not the time to be out in the world, to be talking to others, to be podcasting, to be seeing clients or creating or, doing. This is a time for being. But actually sharing these other parts of ourselves in these less socially acceptable or even productive parts of our cycle is doing ourselves and the world a disservice. We have a lot to offer in all parts of our cycle and a lot to value in ourselves and in each other. So, sometimes there's real merit in actually doing things in the parts of your cycle where cycle syncing logic would tell you that it's not appropriate. And what do I mean by this? So you might think that you wouldn't do a podcast, you might not hold space for clients, you might not do anything that requires you to be out in the world with other people in the tender stages of your inner autumn or your winter, your bleeding time. You might think these are times to be inwards, to be creating, to be quiet by yourself, to be hibernating or retreating and just really coming back to yourself. But actually, I have done lots of these things in this kind of more retreat time of my cycle. You might think that's really strange for somebody who teaches about cycle awareness and passionately lives and embodies the cycle. But, why don't I avoid these things at all costs? Why? Because, like I said, I have an irregular cycle and it's really hard to predict. So I can't actually map out many cycles in advance. And sometimes things just fall in my calendar at a point where when I get to it, I'm like, oh crap, that's not ideal. But, what do? I can't just cancel things. Life goes on. And, also the truth is that if I did that, then it would take me an eternity to get some things done. And in some circumstances, I can create really long lead times for myself where I allow myself multiple cycles to do something instead of just one. But other times, you have to just get on with stuff, especially if you've got family, if you've got children, if you've got pets, if you've got somebody or something that you're caring for, clients. Like, you can't just be like, no, I'm not going to see you, for this great long stretch, like half a cycle, like half a month. Like, no, you can't do that unless, you really, have a life or a business or whatever, a setup where you really can. But for most of us, it's just not realistic. So, the world that we live in is not cycle aware and timelines are a lot quicker. And so sometimes we do have to go against this cycle syncing logic. But I also think there are real gifts in doing this too. There are gifts in showing up just as we are, right there, right in that moment, right at that point in that energy of our cycle. But I think there's a caveat. Only if you embrace where you are in your cycle, if you don't hide it, and if you express the energy that you feel at that time, rather than hiding it and pretending that you're fine. So, for example, the cycle denying version of this would play out something like this. You get up, you're bleeding, you're sore, tired. But, in terms of podcasting, like I'm doing right now, I get myself in front of my mic, I put a big smile on my face, or maybe seeing clients, put a big smile on my face, G myself up and hyper caffeinate. Everyone I talk to, I'm fine, I'm good, life is good. Why wouldn't it be? Inwardly though, feeling like I'm hiding something, and I'm hoping nobody notices that I'm tender. My thoughts are more vague and I'm feeling all the things, that my brain isn't going 100 miles an hour. And, that attitude of I can do anything while I'm bleeding, see? But afterwards, that's when I collapse in a heap. I feel terrible and I hope things just went okay. You might do this. You might really recognize yourself where you just put a brave face on, slap on your makeup, put your best clothes on, put your brightest smile on, and just show up, like really command your energy to be like, I'm here, overcompensating, but then afterwards really collapsing in a heap and jumping into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And trying to forget that actually your womb is performing a total miracle of life. This is how you wear out, crash and burn if you don't have any downtime between your cycles. So the healthy cycle embracing version of still showing up whilst you're bleeding, for example, is going, well, I've got clients, I didn't expect to be bleeding right now, but I am, or maybe even you knew that you would be. And you have a choice. You can either reschedule or you can just show up as your whole self, who is bleeding, tender, emotionally sensitive and intuitive, gentler and softer. And perhaps you're an even deeper listener today. So for example, if I'm holding this space for myself for other people, then what I do is I know that I really need to buffer in time for myself and my needs before and after. So I might look at my calendar and go, right, I didn't expect to be bleeding right now, but I am, and I've got like 2 clients back to back. So what else can I put off in my calendar for another time? Because I know I've only got so much to give. So what's essential? What's the priority? But what else can be pushed aside? Maybe to next week, a couple of weeks. What just actually doesn't really need doing right now at all? And it can just be scratched. And also, how can I show up in the strengths that I have? So how can I use that inwards intuitive energy to really hold that deep, nourishing, maybe softer space where I'm really, really present instead of talking more, perhaps? Can I put an energy boundary around myself as well so I'm not drained? Can I even share with that person where I'm at in my cycle so everyone knows, and it's not this weakness, it's not this secret that I'm trying to pretend that I hope nobody notices, but instead everyone can see it as a gift and witness me in that. And obviously if you're going into an office job, that's probably not going to be something you can do. But if you're going into an office job and you've got meetings and you're just like, oh my God, I just want to be cozied up at home. Like, can you go in there with more of a listening ear rather than being center stage? Or if you are center stage, can you be present, but can you really put an energetic boundary around yourself so you're not there all day, only go to the meetings that you need to go to, or you're just not taking on everything that's going on? Or can you take that lunch break outside in nature afterwards? Maybe it's an early night, maybe it's okay, you've just got to smash out this massive day, but what are you going to do for yourself before and after to really give yourself that gift? If you're finding that you're just being really drained for your whole bleeding time, maybe it's having a tender, slower approach in spring when you stop bleeding. At some point, you're going to have to factor in a bit of downtime. And if that just cannot realistically be in your bleeding time, can it be before you bleed if you know you're going to, when you're in that premenstrual phase? And can it be in that spring phase? Or can you take a deeper rest, like a step back and not be quite so outward in your summer phase? At some point, you're going to have to balance it out. So do you see the difference there? Instead of just plowing on, showing up, going for it day after day after day and going, I've just got so much to do. I've got children, I've got things going on, I want a social life and there's all this stuff, and just push, day after day after day after day, week after week, all cycle long. Can you factor in at some point that you're going to need this rest, and not just keep putting it off, but actually scheduling it, really making it a priority, knowing that if you don't reset and rest, you are going to burn out. The creative and productive cogs, the gears are going to grind, and everything's going to stop unless you take that pause. So I think, cycle awareness is like this most empowering mindfulness, beautiful, deeply self-loving act. But it also has this power to be corrupted, really, where we're like, oh no, I can't do that because I'm in this point in my cycle. I can't do that. Whereas if actually, you enjoy a particular part of your cycle, can you show up in that? Can you use it? Can you be, defy that cycle logic because you're standing in the truth of how you experience your own unique cycle, rather than going, well, this is what the archetypal, the process is. This is what somebody said you should do it this time in your cycle. If that's not going to work for you, or if that's not how you experience it, then there's going to be a real disconnect, isn't there? I also think it's really important to talk about the culture's real rejection of the darker half of our cycle. So the darker half is after ovulation, in the premenstrual phase, and then that bleeding phase. So I think of it as darker because our energy is coming back down. Autumn and winter, they're darker seasons of nature. And it's when we're letting go. It's when we're not in that bright, shiny, ovulating, magnetic, productive, like gorgeous, kind of attractive energy that, we're all meant to feel, but not everybody does feel. We are really uncomfortable with this darkness, with this letting go, with this slowing down. Oh my God, what's going to happen if I don't show up? What's going to happen if I just give myself a break? What's going to happen if I take the morning off? What's going to happen if I say no to that? What's going to happen if I rest? Am I weak? Who's going to be let down? Who am I going to disappoint? What's not going to get done? And then, actually we really need to reclaim this, because in this dark phase, this is where the dark goddess lives, the wild goddess, this wild feminine power. This is where we really come home to our sovereignty and our truth and take care of ourselves and radically say no. It's not just all about giving as a woman, as a person with a cycle. It's about keeping and receiving as well. This is where the healing and the transformation happens. And yes, it's an inward process, but I think we really need to share and speak about and role model for other people that we embrace this part of ourselves, and it's not something that's shunned and kept behind closed doors all the time. The act of talking about the more uncomfortable stuff, or talking about, I'm bleeding right now and this is what it's like for me, and this is how I'm honoring that. It's about embracing all parts of ourselves. It's not about being weak. It's almost too easy to hide. This is about taking courage, embracing all we are. This is about finding strength. This is about leadership. It's not about being weak. It's about being vulnerable and sharing that. And that's a huge power. The world needs to see more of this, not more manipulation of what it means to be perfect. If we can't look at these times in the face, then we're just hiding in fear. There's so much power in embracing these darker unknown parts of ourselves when perhaps you're not in your prime. Girls as well, children need to see role models of people who are comfortable in their skin all the cycle round. And if you don't have a cycle at all, then cycle awareness can feel like it's totally excluding you, like you're not welcome to the party. You can't come and play with us. And I think this is so wrong, because you can be cycle aware without having a period. This is for everybody, because you can honor the internal shifting energies that you experience and that you acknowledge, in how the world around you influences you on these seasonal and cyclical levels too. Cycle awareness is about coming back to you. It's a deeply spiritual practice, but it's also mindfulness. It's embodied mindfulness. It's meant to put the power back in your hands or womb. It's about asking how you feel and what you need. It's about giving you a sense of structure that helps you honor yourself deeply and gives you the permission to do that without feeling like you just can't, you can't keep this up. This fast pace, this instant gratification, this continuously productive extraction culture that we are. It's about at some point knowing, trusting, and fully embracing and accepting that we have to have these inwards and restful points. It's just that it might not be for you when archetypally, the textbook tells you that it should be. Let's not make this another way to feel like a failure, another way to feel like we don't fit into the box of ideal woman. And it's also not, a way to create an exclusive girl gang about this as well. I find it fascinating how easy it is for us to feel shame or feel disconnected from ourselves if things don't go according to the, ideal way that we've decided something should be. It's fascinating. I'm surrounded by so many women who are cycle aware that they find themselves being really pulled back out of their awareness as well, back away from listening to their body, back into overriding themselves, back to working to schedules that they think they need to, pushing themselves to be super productive, taking up as little time for themselves as possible so they can be, killing it at work and present at home. And who doesn't want that? I get that completely. But when you understand your cyclic nature, you have to know it's incredibly important. And you have to actually want to really honor that and to live and to work in a way that really honors that. But you've also got to find a way of it fitting into reality. And this can make you feel like you're really alone. You're doing it alone because you're trying to figure out how to work with your own cycle in the world that, in a non-cyclical, loving culture. And I've lived this. I think we all need that friend who gets it, who can check in on us and who can pull us back from getting derailed and falling into the old ways. We really need to be having conversations with each other where it's about respecting and honoring our own unique cycles and sharing stories and getting a picture of how other people experience it and really holding ourselves accountable to just be where we're at with where we're at. So we can support ourselves, we can really understand the patterns that play out in our own cycles so that we can see those limiting beliefs, excuses and pressures that come up at the same time each month that can call us to fall out of our power and give it away. And whether that's having a deadline that we have created so that we finish something, or whether it's because children and family really need us and so we're pushing on through for them, or whether it's the way we cling to keeping busy when we don't feel in control of what we're doing. So I'm really passionate about creating a community around this, a soulful sisterhood environment where we can hear each other, support each other, be around people who really get it. And we're not just going, sharing all the good stuff. Like we can share the challenges that are so present in doing this and not feel shame about what's true for us as well when things aren't perfect. This is why I've created my brand new 4-month group experience called Cycle Sorcery. I'm so excited about this. Honestly, it's ridiculous. I'm so excited because this is an experience I've created to help you really understand, reclaim, and embody your wild feminine cyclic powers. So it's a 4-month container where we're going to journey through each of the 4 seasons of the cycle over a month and really experience through womb journeying, rituals, women's circles, beautiful group coaching and embodiment work, how you experience each part of your cycle so you can nurture yourself deeply. Learn how to work with your cycle as best for you and as unique to you as you grow your impact in the world. So whether you're currently a space holder, a creative, a coach, a facilitator, whether you have a business, whether you actually work for somebody else and have something on the side, or whether you just really, really want to lean on cycle awareness in your work as well. And whether you're, at the point of discovering what you want to do in the world, if you're just getting started, if you want to create beautiful, strong foundations that will serve you from the start, this is for you. You might be a mum. You might hope to be a mum. And you might not be a mum at all. But either way, this is about nourishing yourself so you can be fully present and a powerful role model for the people around you. But most of all, it's a place of taking that permission, being held with love and accountability, not in a I told you so way, but in a this really matters to me way, and I need to be reminded of that way. To come back and be really true and at home in your cyclic self so that you can feel and share your wild feminine power in all that you do. So having this place to journey, to experience, to be shown on these deeper levels through archetypes and journeying and connecting with your womb through beautiful rituals and guided practices, and to be coached in a beautiful space where, yes, we're in a group, but in that we see so much of what's true for us is also true for so many others. And we hear our stories mirrored in each other. And we might not have thought to ask a question or share something, but somebody else does. And we go, that's so true for me too. And when we can share and be our whole selves in the circle with women who are really there for the same thing, that is where the magic is. That's where the healing is, the transformation is. That's where we feel so supported, not alone, and like we are able to really, really stand and love ourselves from being rooted in our wild feminine cyclic power. So this is beginning in July. Places are now open for enrollment. I am so excited to bring this journey to you because it's going to teach you and guide you to know yourself on deeper levels, but also hold you in that powerful, sacred circle of women who are here for deeper, soulful sharing too. This is about really taking your cycle awareness and embodying it to that much deeper level. So if you're interested in joining us, come and find out more. Maybe line up a chat with me to share any questions that you've got so I can help you make the right decision for you, whether that's yes or no. And to enroll with the early bird price, come and find the links in the show notes. I really hope that you join us. I am calling in incredible women who are really here to be open, to learn, to support, to embody this cyclic way of doing life, of doing love, and of doing our work and growing our impact in the world too. I hope you join us. So much love. Thank you so much for listening in. If you're loving this podcast and you'd love to help me spread the wisdom shared, please leave a review or rating or share this with somebody who you think would love to listen in. I'm really passionate about creating ripples of change and getting this information to more women, girls, and people with a cycle so that they can reclaim their cyclic natures too. And if you'd love to dive in deeper with learning more about how to connect with your cycle and rites of passages, come and join our free Wild Flow Circle community or choose a course and learn with me on my online learning hub. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, be well and go with the flow of your cyclic nature.